I never thought moving into a peaceful neighborhood would turn into a full-scale nightmare. But then came HOA Karen. From the moment she arrived, it was obvious she had one goal: control everything, the people, the rules, even the vehicles. Still, I never imagined she'd go so far as to try and steal my truck for her son. Yet that's exactly what she did. It all began on a Saturday morning. I had just wrapped up a grueling work week and was looking forward to a quiet day off. Just me, my coffee, and the sunshine. My pride and joy, a deep blue Ford F-150 that I had spent years restoring, was parked neatly in my driveway. Everything felt calm, normal, until I heard the crunch of gravel that didn't belong. At first, I thought it was a package delivery or maybe a neighbor stopping by. But when I peeked through the blinds, my stomach dropped. Karen's son was sitting behind the wheel of my truck, hands on the steering wheel like he owned it. And there was Karen herself, standing right beside him, waving her arms and barking orders as if she ruled the entire street. I stormed outside, doing my best to keep my composure. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice sharp and cutting. Karen turned with that smug, self-righteous grin she always wore like armor. "He needs to borrow it," she declared, as if that explained everything. "And I already told you, you can't just park it here." I blinked in disbelief. My truck wasn't community property, it was mine, and there was no way I was letting her entitled son drive off with it. But Karen wasn't listening. She stepped in front of the truck like her sheer stubbornness could magically make it hers. The standoff escalated fast. Ever the drama queen, Karen whipped out her phone and dialed the police, claiming I was harassing her son. I held my ground, but in my head I was already thinking several moves ahead. She didn't know one important detail. I had connections at the state attorney's office. I had just finished assisting them on a community safety investigation, and that connection was still fresh. By the time the police rolled up, Karen was pacing with indignation, ready to paint me as the villain. She immediately launched into her rehearsed speech, pointing fingers, her voice shrill and commanding. She accused me of aggression, of intimidation, even of threatening her son. But I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I let her dig her own hole deeper. When the officer finally turned to me, I presented my case clearly and simply. "This truck is mine," I said, calmly holding up my keys. "She and her son had no right to touch it. She's making false claims. Here's my registration, insurance, and proof of ownership." I handed over a neatly organized set of documents. The officer studied them, then looked at Karen, who was still flailing her arms, ranting like some unhinged orchestra conductor. "What about the neighbor disputes?" Karen quickly jumped in, trying to change the subject. "He's always intimidating people." I just gave a faint smile. I'd played this game with her enough to know her every exaggeration before she made it. And I knew my real advantage wasn't in yelling louder, it was in the quiet weight of my connections. I didn't even need to mention them yet. The officer, clearly uneasy with the escalating scene, called for backup and began taking formal statements. Karen's frustration grew by the second. She leaned in close, hissing threats under her breath, as though intimidation could change the facts. But it only revealed how desperate she was. While the officers managed the situation, I quietly stepped aside and dialed my contact at the state attorney's office. Within minutes, the tone shifted. Suddenly, the officers were giving me their full attention, consulting me more than Karen. The possibility of legal consequences loomed over her, and her smugness started to crumble. Karen tried to spin more lies, claims that I had been harassing her son, that I was unstable. But with my documents in hand and the state attorney's office looped in, her accusations fell flat. The officers made their stance clear. The truck belongs to him. Any further attempt to use it without permission will result in legal action. By the time they left, Karen was red-faced and fuming, forced to retreat. Her son slouched beside her, clearly shaken and embarrassed. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about my truck anymore. Karen was capable of creating real chaos in this neighborhood. But I had the upper hand now, and I planned to keep it. That afternoon, Karen stormed back to her house, her face twisted with disbelief and rage. But I knew she wouldn't stop there. People like her rarely did. I decided then I would always stay one step ahead, After locking my truck safely in the garage, I began documenting everything: photos of the vehicle, timestamps, and a detailed log of every encounter with Karen and her son. If she tried to twist the story or turn neighbors against me, I'd have every fact in black and white. That evening, I got a call from my contact at the state attorney's office. "We've got your back," they assured me. "If she pushes this any further, we'll handle it. Just don't provoke her." That reassurance gave me all the confidence I needed. I knew I had the law behind me, and that changed everything. The very next morning, Karen tried her first counterattack. She strutted down the street, attempting to rally the neighbors, loudly spreading rumors that I was abusing authority and overreacting. Her son trailed behind her, trying to look tough but clearly unsure of himself. It might have been laughable if it weren't so infuriating, but I stayed calm. I greeted the neighbors politely, offered small talk, and let them see for themselves who was truly reasonable and who wasn't. Many neighbors had already caught on to Karen's patterns: her habit of blowing up minor issues, her obsession with controlling every detail, and her endless drama. Quietly, they began siding with me. By the time she stormed back into her house that day, her performance had no audience. But Karen wasn't finished. A week later, she made her boldest move yet. At dawn, she crept into my driveway, clearly hoping to get her hands on the truck again without sparking another confrontation. That was the moment I decided it was time to escalate. The state attorney was already briefed. The police were aware of potential repeat attempts, and I had documented everything. To drive the point home, I left a simple note on my truck. "Any unauthorized use of this vehicle will result in immediate legal action. The state attorney has been informed." Later that day, I spotted Karen pacing outside, restless and scanning for a chance to reclaim what she believed was hers. Her frustration was written all over her face. Her son looked uneasy, beginning to realize she had dragged him into something serious. For the first time, Karen was forced to face a reality where she had no control. It became clear her arrogance was her downfall. She had underestimated me, underestimated the law, and underestimated how fed up the neighborhood was with her antics. The longer she clung to her fantasy of authority, the harder her eventual fall would be, and that fall was about to come. That morning, she appeared again at my driveway with her son in tow, both of them clearly set on one final attempt. But this time, I was more than ready. I didn't rush to stop them. I let her son climb into the truck, let Karen wave her phone in the air as if she could will her way into victory. Before they could even start the engine, I stepped outside calmly. My voice was steady, firm, and deliberate. "You're out of options," I said. "The state attorney is already aware of your actions. The police have been notified. Any further attempts will bring immediate consequences." Karen's face drained of color, but she didn't back down immediately. Instead, she tried her usual tactics: accusations, claims that I was bullying her, attempts to flip the story. But it all fell flat. I had every piece of proof I needed: photos, timestamps, neighbors as witnesses, and the full weight of the state attorney's backing. Her theatrics couldn't compete with solid evidence. At that moment, I decided to end it once and for all. I called my contact at the state attorney's office and asked for a formal warning to be delivered directly to Karen. Within the hour, a certified letter was at her doorstep. The look on her face when she opened it was unforgettable. She realized immediately that this wasn't a bluff, not an empty threat, and not something she could charm or argue her way out of. Her son glanced at her nervously, clearly questioning the brilliant plan she had dragged him into. For the first time, Karen was speechless. The confidence, the bravado, gone, replaced by shame, anger, and fear. Neighbors watched the scene unfold from their porches, exchanging silent, knowing glances. Karen had finally run into a wall she couldn't bulldoze. From that day forward, the attempts stopped. My truck remained untouched in my driveway, safe and secure. Karen disappeared back into her house, nursing her bruised ego, while the neighborhood finally settled back into its usual calm. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply stayed vigilant. The same quiet patience that had protected me from the start. Looking back, the entire ordeal carried a clear lesson. Entitlement and arrogance blind people to reality, but patience, preparation, and the right legal backing can flip the entire script. Karen learned that lesson the hard way. And the neighborhood learned something too. Not fear, but respect. Respect for boundaries, accountability, and the reality that rules have consequences. In the end, my truck stayed exactly where it belonged, and Karen's illusion of control shattered into pieces. Some people never understand that consequences aren't optional, they're very real, and ignoring them comes with a price. As for me, I enjoyed my truck, my peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing justice had been served, without me ever raising a hand in anger. The neighborhood saw it all, and one thing was certain. HOA Karen would think twice before ever trying something like this again. And if you enjoyed this story and want more wild HOA and Karen encounters, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single one. Smash that like button if you loved watching Karen get her long overdue downfall, and drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Who knows? Your story might even inspire the next video.